Well, today I'll be talking about 10 no-skip albums from my collection. Now, of course, with these albums being no skips, this is, of course, all just my opinion, but these albums will be in no particular order. But the first album I do want to talk about is from one of my personal favorite bands, Faith No More, with one of my favorite albums in general from the 90s with their album, Angel Dust. Now, of course, you do have your Real Thing fans, the fans that will point to Real Thing as the best one or as their favorite. But honestly, that album and King for a Day, Fool for a Lifetime, those two albums kind of fight for being my second favorite Faith No More album. I mean, two very different albums, but I really dig both of those albums for different reasons. But at the top of their discography, personally, I really got to go with Angel Dust. When it comes to a front-to-back album listing, there is not a single weak track on here. I mean, the singles are still great, like Midlife Crisis, Everything's Ruined, and A Small Victory. That song being one of my favorite songs from the band, but the deeper cuts are still pretty good. Some of the best deeper cuts, in my opinion, such as songs like Kindergarten and Crack Hitler. I do also like Caffeine. The more melodic songs are solid, like RV, but of course I do like it when they get a bit heavier, such as in songs like Jizzlobber and Malpractice. And of course, you also have Mike Patton. I mean, definitely a unique vocalist, and his vocal performance on here is definitely one of the big highlights here, especially in songs like Crack Hitler and Jizzlobber and Midlife Crisis. I mean, again, definitely a really great vocalist. His vocals, maybe not for everybody, but personally, I really dig his vocals, though. And this album is no exception. Definitely an album I had to mention in this video. The next one, moving to the world of nu metal, definitely one of the biggest names from that genre. And yeah, for those who know me, you'll know, especially when you see a topic like this in the title of the video, you know, of course, I'm going to mention this album. But the album I am talking about is Meteora by Linkin Park. And that album I've mentioned many times is one of my favorite albums of all time. Probably a top 10 favorite album of all time. I know it'd probably be my top 10. I mean, this was the band that got me into rock and metal, so I'm always gonna have a soft spot for this band. Gonna have a little bit of bias. Now, I'm not gonna say that I like everything from the band, everything that they've done. I don't, but Meteora, for me, all these years later, still to me a perfect album. Not a single weak track on it. The singles are still great in my opinion. Even the songs on here that are, you can maybe say, are overplayed, such as songs like Numb and Faint, which I still enjoy. But the deeper cuts, I think, are still really good, like songs like Figure Point 09 and Nobody's Listening. I also really like Hit the Floor. That's definitely one of their most underrated songs. And of course, this album further shows that Mike Shinoda and Chester Bennington, rest in peace, have really great chemistry. But yeah, to me, one of the greatest nu metal albums of all time, and one of the best sophomore albums in general from that genre too. I mean, Hybrid Theory, definitely a tough album to follow, and to me, they did a really good job. And to me, did even better with this album. Now, Hybrid Theory, I know many people would point to that album as the band's best or as their favorite, but that album for me would be in close seconds. For me, at the top, it's got to be Meteora. But yeah, Meteora, definitely an album I had to mention here. But moving into one of the big four of thrash, maybe the biggest name out of the four, and also one of the biggest metal bands out there, of course, Metallica. Now, of course, you can go with an album like Master of Puppets, because I know that's a common pick for being the best or the favorite Metallica album, which means still a great album. But for me, I got to go with Ride the Lightning. This one is my favorite. I mean, yeah, no filler on here. I mean, the more well-known songs out here I think are still really good. Never Get Old, such as songs like For Whom the Bell Tolls, and Fade to Black, which might be my favorite ballad from the band, and might have one of my favorite solos from the band too, towards the end of the song, of course. I mean, and then you have Fight Fire with Fire. Definitely a killer way to open up the album, and also probably one of the heaviest songs on the album, and I was definitely really happy when they performed that song when I saw them live the second night in Seattle last year, if I remember correctly, if I got my information right. But yeah, I always really loved that song. And of course, the title track's really great too. That's another highlight off the album. Now, I know with mentioning this album, some people argue about this album maybe not being perfect because of track number 6, Escape. I like that song. I know the band themselves are, for whatever reason, I'm not too big on that one, but personally, I like that song. Maybe a song that I don't return to as much as some of the other songs on here, but I still do like Escape though. And of course, you also have Creeping Death, which is another classic for them. But yeah, Ride the Lightning, definitely one of the best thrash albums out there. Now we're moving to the world of rap / hip hop, however you want to put it, with definitely a classic with Nas, Illmatic. Often considered his best or one of his best. I mean, this would of course be his debut album. I mean, yeah, no weak songs on here. I mean, you can talk about the storytelling from Nas and his lyrical content or his bars. I mean, this album also has some of his best deep cuts, especially songs like Memory Lane and Life's a Bitch. I also really like One Time for Your Mind, one of the more underrated songs off the album. And when it comes to his singles, I think It Ain't Hard to Tell is one of the more underrated singles from him. I really like that song, and probably one of my favorite album closers from him too. And of course, you have the big song on here with The World Is Yours, which is definitely a rap classic. And of course, you also have New York State of Mind, which is definitely an iconic song for him, and of course one of his best too. But yeah, definitely not a single weak track on here. Definitely a no skip album, and easily one of the best albums of 1994 in general. And talking about another album that I think is one of the best albums of 1994. Next album we have here is Dummy by Portishead. One of the biggest names in the world of trip hop. And for me, if you're just a fan of music in general, not talking about any specific genres or anything, I think this is definitely an album that you should definitely check out. I mean, whether it be the sampling or just the overall atmosphere that this album builds and just the overall vibe of it. I mean, this is one of those albums that the album really pulls you in, especially if you're listening to it with headphones. It's definitely one of those albums, I'd say. But of course, when you talk about the more well-known songs on here, I mean, I think those songs still are really strong. And some of the band's best work, such as songs like Sour Times and, of course, Glory Box, which is maybe the biggest song on here. But I really like the lesser known songs on the album too, like Pedestal and It's a Fire. I also like Strangers. That's the song that's grown to be one of my favorites on the album. When I was getting into Portishead, that was to me one of the more weaker songs off the album. But over time, that's grown to be one of my favorites, and maybe one of my favorite Portishead songs in general. Especially, I really dig the instrumental, or the instrumentation in that song especially. I do like the use of turntables in the album too. And then, of course, you also have Beth Gibbons. I mean, her voice especially really pulls you into the song, especially certain songs on here too, such as songs like Roads and Wandering Star and Mysterons, if I pronounced that correctly, the album opener. But also you have the song Numb, which to me has to be, well, to me, one of their best songs. I absolutely love that song. That always been one of my favorite songs from the band. But yeah, Portishead, Dummy. If you haven't heard it, definitely give it a listen. Really good stuff, especially if you're a music fan in general. Just really good stuff. But moving into the world of electronic music, I know there's a specific term for this style of electronic music. I think it's called Big Beat, if I remember correctly. But either way, the album we are talking about is The Prodigy with their album The Fat of the Land. And a band that I discovered later on, but glad I eventually discovered them and got into them. But this was an album that kind of blew me away when I checked it out for the first time, and still an album I really enjoy. I mean, the singles on here are still really good, like Smack My Bitch Up and, of course, Firestarter, which is one of their big songs. And, of course, you also have Breathe, which is another fan favorite. But the lesser-known songs on the album I think are still pretty good, too, like Funky Shit, which is definitely a fun track. And also like Serial Thriller, which kind of feels heavy. You could say maybe one of the heavier songs off of here. I really like that song. I also do like the rapping in Diesel Power. You also have Minefields, which I believe might have been part of one of the Matrix soundtracks, if I remember correctly. But yeah, front to back, definitely a perfect album. Not a single weak track on it. And now we're moving to Red Hot Chili Peppers with Californication. Now, when you have an album that has like 14 or 15 songs, you'd think there'd more likely be filler on it, but I wouldn't say that's the case with this album. One of the rare exceptions, in my opinion. To me, once you pass the 12 songs mark, once you start getting to 13 and on, I feel like you're more likely going to have at least a few filler songs, but with this album, you definitely don't get that. I mean, this wasn't always my favorite Red Hot Chili Peppers album. For the longest time, Mother's Milk was actually my favorite, but over time, this is going to be my favorite. I mean, this album is definitely a good combination between the more earlier funky stuff and also a combination of that and the more melodic side of them that they would show more later on after this album, especially with the next album. But yeah, absolutely love this album. I mean, of course, the big songs on here I still enjoy, like Scar Tissue and Other Side, and the title track Californication probably being one of my favorite songs in general from the band. And then you have Around the World, which is just through and through definitely a banger. Another song that I think is one of their best, and probably one of their best album openers too. But you get the more lesser known songs on here in the second half of the album especially. But I really dig the deep cuts on the album, especially songs like I Like Dirt and Purple Stain, which shows off their more funky side. But I dig the more melodic songs on here too, like Porcelain and This Velvet Glove, which has to be one of their most underrated songs. Maybe a song I'd say might have deserved to be a single. I don't know. I feel like it's not talked about as much as some of the other songs on here, but that's always been one of my personal favorites on the album. This Velvet Glove, really great song. But yeah, all around, really great album. But now we're moving to one of my personal favorite bands, probably a top 3 band for me if I'm being honest. And that band is Rush, and we were talking about Moving Pictures. Definitely a perfect album, definitely a no-skip album. I do still like the bigger songs on the album, like Tom Sawyer and Limelight, but the lesser talked about songs I still enjoy too, like Witch Hunt and The Camera Eye. And I do think YYZ is maybe one of their best instrumentals too. But yeah, not a single weak track on it. I mean, absolutely love this album. And this was, of course, a big album for the band, having some of their biggest songs, of course, like Tom Sawyer and Limelight again. But yeah, definitely an album I had to mention in this video. Definitely really good stuff. But next we're moving back to the world of nu metal. Now you do kind of get a debate with this band about whether they're nu metal or not. Honestly, for me, I do kind of lump them in there, even though the lyrical content is fairly different from what you usually expect in nu metal. Because with nu metal, you get more angsty lyrics, but while this band's a bit more political. But of course, you have your more jokey songs, of course, from the band, such as with a song like Bounce. But yeah, System of a Down, Toxicity, definitely an album I had to mention here, and also one of my favorite albums of all time, and to me, one of the greatest albums of 2001 in general. But yeah, absolutely love this album, and an album I've lost track of how many times I've listened to this album from front to back. Such a killer album from front to back. I mean, of course you have popular songs on here like Chop Suey and the title track and Aerials, which I still do enjoy, but even the little more lesser talked about songs I think are still pretty good too, like Prison Song, which is probably one of their best album openers in my opinion. Maybe my favorite album opener from them, if I'm being honest. Or at least it's up there, or it's in competition. You have other really great songs like Deer Dance. I definitely dig the heavy riffs that you get in that song. I also like Forest. To me, that's one of their most underrated songs. Even the shorter tracks I do enjoy, like X and Shimmy. Shimmy's a fun track. I also like Psycho. I do dig the solo that you get later on in that song too. And of course, I do like the vocal chemistry between Darren and Serge on this album. I mean, when it comes to the vocal chemistry between them, I think this album does it the best. But yeah, all around, definitely a nu metal classic. Really good stuff. And now for the final album for this video, Van Halen, Fair Warning. Which I know for some people might be an odd choice, because if we're talking perfect albums and we're talking Van Halen, I mean, I'm sure many people would maybe point to the debut instead, but the debut is probably my second favorite. But I'm a Fair Warning guy. I absolutely love this album. You do have some of their heaviest work on this album too. I can definitely see some people maybe making an argument for the last two songs maybe being skips, especially with them being shorter songs and all that, but personally, I do dig both of those songs. Sunday Afternoon in the Park and One Foot Out the Door. I do dig both of those songs. But yeah, this is an album I can listen to from front to back with no issue though. But of course, the big song on here is Unchained. Definitely a classic for them. But you'll also have one of their best album openers, in my opinion, on this album with Mean Street. But you do get, to me, some of the band's best deep cuts with Dirty Movies, and I can't remember if Hear About Later was a single or not, but either way, if that counts as a deeper cut, I really like that song. But yeah, this to me has to be my favorite from Van Halen, and yeah, really good stuff. Absolutely love that album. I mean, again, I know many people will point to the debut, which is also awesome, but for me, gotta go with Fair Warning for me. Absolutely love that album. But yeah, those are 10 no-skip albums from my collection. Let me know your thoughts on these albums in the comment section below. And of course, if you haven't heard of some of these albums, definitely make sure to check out those albums and let me know your thoughts on those in the comment section below. And let me know if you can think of any more no-skip albums and all that good stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment and a like, subscribe. Have a nice day and take care.